Moving to our next discussion, a panel on messages of peace across the Cypriot media.
Great, so we're back. Do we have the other two speakers online? Perfect. Hi, we're back. I'm Nicholas Kyriakidis, and I'm very glad that I will be moderating the discussion with title Messages of Peace Across the Media. And I'm very lucky to have with me here Mr. Kostas Pliakos from CNN Greece, here in Nicosia, I mean. And also very lucky to have with us from Zurich, Sofia Papamichalopoulos, and from Maastricht, Meltem Burak. Hi Meltem, hi Sofia, hi Kostas. So the idea behind this discussion started, I think I had the idea because I know very well Kostas, Sofia, and Meltem, and I thought that they had a story to say about how difficult, or not difficult, but I think it's difficult to pass messages of peace through at least the mass media. First of all, Kostas, we met in Delphi last April, and he told me that he wanted to do a documentary about the 50 years from the war in Cyprus, and he wanted to do something different, not the traditional kind of documentary. So he asked for my suggestions on who to approach, including also people from the Turkish Cypriot community, and his documentary actually was a great success. And then Sofia started the Winds of Change a few years ago, so I'm sure her and her team tried to penetrate the media with what they were doing about the project before and after. And then Meltem, I don't know when exactly we met, but you also interviewed me in a podcast, and I was also following your podcasts for a long time. And having all this in mind, I suggested that it would be interesting to have such a discussion. I think it's good to give you like 2 minutes to each of you to introduce yourselves. So I sort of did, but please you can elaborate a bit more. So Kostas, please, what else do you want to say about yourself?
I don't think that I need 2 minutes, but okay. I am a professional journalist. I work as a journalist for more than maybe 25 years. For the last 9 years, I worked with CNN Greece with a small break that I moved to Vice and back to CNN Greece. I have worked with many media outlets in Greece. I worked many years in the foreign office, in the foreign desk of media, different media. I also am a producer and filmmaker. I'm here to talk a bit about new approach or a different approach in the media of the Cyprus issue. That's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, if we have a success. I think, yes, we start a discussion, and that's the success.
Excellent.
In some way.
Thanks a lot. Moving on to Sofia.
Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the panel today. Well, I haven't really had a strong prior connection to media up until recently, as my background is more in medicine and sports. So I'm a medical doctor by profession. I currently work at the University Hospital in Zurich in the Department of Visceral Surgery and Transplantation, so completely different field. But most of my life has revolved around sports. And I've been an athlete competing in sailing and alpine skiing. In 2010, my brother and I represented Cyprus at the Winter Olympic Games in Vancouver. And how I recently became more connected to media, apart from social media, was when last year I founded the initiative Winds of Change, which focuses on sport for development. And through this initiative, we gave rise to a bicommunal sailing team, which on September 21st, 2023, became the first team in almost 50 years to actually sail around Cyprus. And so this is why and how we decided to produce a documentary film about it in order to share our story with the world.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sofia. And last but not least, of course, Meltem.
Merhaba, everyone. Hello. Thank you very much for having me here today, Nicholas. It's a privilege to be here with Sofia and Kostas. So my name is Meltem. I'm originally from Cyprus, but I have been living in the Netherlands for right now, I think, 11 years, and I really love the place. Well, I'm a lecturer in EU politics and policy at Master School of European Studies. So I have a background in European Studies. I studied here in Maastricht European Studies as my bachelor's. In the meantime, I did my exchange at Sciences Po in Lyon in political science. And afterwards, I completed a master's degree, again, here in Maastricht University, called Arts and Culture, and I specialize in politics and society. After I graduated, I started making a podcast, which is how I had the privilege to get to know Nicholas and interview him. The name of my podcast is Sesta, inspired by Cyprus and its beauty, which is always in my heart. I will talk further about it, so I'm saving it for a later time. But thanks to Sesta, I got involved in United Nations projects as well. So in 2022, I got involved with the Seeking Peace podcast project of the United Nations. And last year in 2023 and in 2024, I had the privilege to be selected to the United Nations Peace Begins With Her projects in New York and Geneva, which celebrate the role of women peace builders and peacekeepers around the world.
Excellent. Thanks to all of you. I want to start with Kostas on purpose because, I mean, he is in the mass media, and I want to ask him what is the documentary you did about, and looking at all the other mass media doing other type of documentaries. Why did you specifically choose to shift the focus at least a little bit?
Cyprus, 1974-2024, The Trauma of Invasion is a feature online documentary we made along my colleagues within CNN Greece on the occasion of the 50 years from the coup and the war. I know that the word invasion, it's very sensitive. It's not accepted by anyone.
Invasion, intervention, and war to save time, at least, for the discussion, yes.
In Greece, the Cyprus issue is a very sensitive issue, which is approached by, I would say, a nationalistic tint, I could say. Of course, there is a national narrative from which is very, very difficult to deviate if you are a professional journalist, especially when we are talking about foreign policy. It's very difficult to deviate from this nationalistic, from this narrative, and sometimes it could be a problem from your career for your profession, but this is another story. So most of the publications about the 50 years of the war in the Greek media were of historical content or were reports with testimonials of people who were who lived through the events. So we decided to talk about today's Cyprus, focusing more on the next day. So we decided to shift a bit the focus, without, of course, without leaving out of the content the past, but to focus on the peace process and where this peace process is going, and about the efforts to resolve the Cyprus problem today. So we choose this focus because it seems to me and to our my colleagues in Athens more interesting, and because we thought and we speculate, and we were right, that no one would have the same approach. Of course, later, some other media tried to copy us. That's the story in short.
Okay, thank you. Sophia, tell us a little bit about Winds of Change and how did it come about, and also how did you start, your first interaction with the media, trying to, make this public? I have no sound. Sorry, 1 second.
About now?
Yeah. Sorry, you were muted.
Okay. Sorry. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm proud to be here today to also, speak about what we've achieved with Winds of Change, because I remember being at the forum a few years ago, speaking about the project for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that a lot of people back then thought that the project would remain a concept. So I'm happy to today talk about what we've actually managed to do. Mm-hmm. And to give a little bit more background on Winds of Change and how the actual project came about, despite my career focus now being in medicine, I've strongly remained connected with sports and the Olympic movement. And 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now, I was selected by the International Olympic Committee to be an IOC Young Leader. And through this role, I was given the opportunity to develop a Sport for Development project in my community, which is what led to Winds of Change. And Winds of Change per se is a sailing program for young Cypriots that focuses on peace building. And the vision was to bring our two divided communities together through sport, specifically through sailing, and to give these young people a unique journey with a common purpose. And the mission of Winds of Change is to challenge, empower, inspire together. So to challenge young people to step outside their comfort zones, to empower them through sport, to give them the skills that they need to go on this journey, and to inspire them and others to be part of the peace-building process, and to do all of this together, so to foster collaboration and teamwork. And the project took place in 4 phases. I won't go into detail, but it's relevant to why we did the documentary. So the first phase was a team development phase for the participants. The second phase was the sailing training. And the third phase was the challenge for them, for this team that we've developed, to actually sail around the island together. And the third phase is what we defined as the outreach phase. And this is where we also want to use our story and our journey to inspire more young people. So this is where we mainly started to trying to use the media to help us tell this story and bring this story closer to young people.
And what is your, just a follow-up question, actually, it was also the last part of my previous question. How was your first interaction with the, let's say, Greek Cypriot media when you, let's say, I guess you sent like a press release in the beginning? How was it received? Did they ignore you?
This was a bit tricky because initially before we actually did the circumnavigation, we tried to keep a bit of a low profile, let's say. We did some radio interviews, we did some newspaper articles, but we were actually concerned that if we went too much on the media, that this could jeopardize the circumnavigation. Later on, though, when we actually successfully completed the circumnavigation, we had prepared and sent out a press release, even a video news report. And to our surprise, that was not picked up by the media. And in that moment, I was actually really happy that we decided to do this documentary, because at least this way, you know, it was a moment that we really created. It was a historical moment for our island. And at least with the documentary, we managed to capture it on the film.
Okay. And Meltem, how did the Sesta podcast come about, and why did you choose, you know, a podcast to get, you know, some messages, I guess, you wanted to put out there?
Thank you for the question, Nicholas. Before I begin, maybe I would like to quote a student of mine who is from Ukraine, and maybe I want to say this again for one more time. I'm really happy to be at this panel today, because I think as an island, we have been craving for peace, and I'm using this word very explicitly, craving for peace for such a long time. But I think as a world, we are craving peace. So my student, she won an award last year, and she had to give a speech. She's, like I said, from Ukraine, and this is what she wrote about peace. So she says, "Peace is like health. When you have it, you don't appreciate it. It seems normal. But when you lose it, you understand that it is the most important thing in your life." So this is from my student, Yeva, and this was basically, to return back to your question, this was one of the drives behind the idea of Sesta. Before Sesta, I was making another podcast. I graduated in 2020, and it was the heart of Corona. There was not yet a vaccine. Nothing was certain. And well, yeah, I graduated, and I was like, okay, what is it that I want to do with my life? So I knew I wanted to do something intellectual, and I knew that I wanted to do something which had an impact. So I started making my own podcast called Meltem's Culture Club, and afterwards I was discovered by Island Talks, which is the trilingual podcast station from Cyprus. And well, they asked me to make a podcast for them. And this paved the way for Sesta, which is a podcast that analyzes the relationship between arts and culture and peace building. And the idea behind this was basically, and probably I will elaborate that soon in the upcoming panel. I don't want to go on to too much detail at the moment. But the idea behind it was to make use of a platform that's not traditional, that's outside the scope of the traditional media, by a young woman like me who is living in the Netherlands, to talk about peace, but to talk about peace from a different perspective, like Kostas said, for his project, to actually debunk the narratives that exist, to look at things from another perspective, to be able to contextualize things. And so, yeah, the first episode of Sesta was launched in 2022. And yeah, it's still ongoing. Officially, it's still ongoing. I cannot produce as many podcasts as I want to. But yeah, it's still there, and I'm really proud of it.
Amazing. And Sophia, you talked about the documentary of the Winds of Change. I guess you had to create a narrative that spoke to people on both sides. Have you achieved that? And if yes, how?
So that was a real challenge, because when you think that sailing around the island was thought to be our biggest challenge, actually, when we had achieved that, we found it really difficult to now tell a story that would be heard on both sides. And part of the reason why we did the documentary was to be able to reach a larger audience. So we did want to have a story that people on both sides of the island will want to see and listen to, because the project in itself being so complex in its nature, we could only have a small number of participants that would benefit from the program. So we were putting all these resources in the project, but actually our impact was quite limited. So through the documentary, we want to harness the power of storytelling to multiply our impact and to reach more people. And I mean, when you try and tell this story, you find so many obstacles, and in Cyprus in general, when you have to do with bicommunal projects, there's so many challenges in what you can and cannot say, in what you can and cannot show. And when we finished the film, I knew that the narrative will definitely not speak to everyone, and we didn't even attempt to do that because it's impossible to please everyone. And like Kostas mentioned, even with simple terminology being challenging. But I'm positive that it will speak to a lot of people on both sides, because it's simply a different narrative than the usual narrative that they hear. And I think Meltem mentioned the same, just trying to create space for different narratives is really important. And I think the power of storytelling is really important as well, because I believe it can really make a difference for young people in Cyprus to hear something different. And I believe that also through our film, our director and producer, Alistair Maharg, has done a really good job in creating those goosebump moments and really giving the opportunity for our audience to experience our journey visually and acoustically, and almost giving them the feeling like they were part of it.
Kostas, back to you. You're a professional journalist, and in the mass media, I think what matters more is views, likes, engagement. I mean, this is not the case so much for, let's say, maybe a podcast. Maybe Meltem was doing the podcast, for her own pleasure and for the audience that she wanted to reach. Anyway, Sofia was also happy maybe for the project itself, but for professional journalists, you have to produce results. And you wanted to do this documentary, and I think it was quite popular. How did you achieve this? Because I think, we haven't said this before, but I guess sometimes when a story is more, spicy in terms of, promoting someone's ethnicity or condemning someone else or another nation is usually more popular, and people engage more and might go viral much more easily than a story which might make you think more, or it's something that you don't expect to see. So in this case, you basically achieved to put their message, which was not a traditional message, but at the same time, you made it interesting. How did you do it?
You don't know from the beginning if your work will be a success. Cyprus issue is, as I said in the beginning, a sensitive issue for the Greek media. But not so much for the Greek audience. I think that many people are tired to listen again and again about the Cyprus issue again and again. And we have not forget that there are 50 years, the new generation know very little about Cyprus issue, what happened back in 74, in the past, etc. So we thought that, yes, we have to make something about, to do something about the 50 years. So let's think about how to make it attractive. I think it's the narrative again, as Sofia mentioned about the narrative. We choose to create different layers in our narrative, mixing the past with the present, and do it again and again during the timeline of the documentary, and talk about giving some examples of reapproachment of between the two communities, and at the same time by inviting people in front of the camera who have a lot of experience in the negotiation process all these years. Also because it is somehow attractive to the viewers when we talk about audiovisual production, to give some images, attractive images, like for example, in our case, we managed to enter to the buffer zone, to take footage from some hot spots from the buffer zone.
I think it was an old car storage, I think.
Some images that it's we haven't seen in the past, or maybe if you try to look more deeply, you can find some images. But we try to give some images, some footage, some views from spots that people haven't seen, like the airport or like some spots in the buffer zone. That I think that make our job, our product, our documentary more attractive to the audience, and keep them online to watch not only 5-10 minutes, but spend more time online.
Okay, Meltem, the focus of your podcast, I think, was basically mostly on arts and culture. How did you manage to construct messages of peace through that?
Well, Nicholas, I think first of all, maybe I would like to talk about why I choose to focus on my podcast and art, and to be able to answer your question about arts and culture. And I find this very interesting because even though I make use of a different media when compared to Sofia or when compared to Kostas, I'm seeing that we are very similar with what we want to reach. So for instance, when Sofia was saying that she wanted to create space for different narratives, I could completely relate to her. Or when Kostas was saying, the narratives about Cyprus were again and again the same, I could completely relate with him. And that was actually my drive, one of my drives. You know, I am in the Netherlands, but of course I follow what's going on as much as possible. I follow what's going on in Cyprus, and particularly because I happen to be from the northern part, I have to say, I follow what's going on there maybe more than what's going on in Republic of Cyprus as such. And I was just really tired of hearing again and again the same narratives. And I have to say, unfortunately, also the peace narratives were the same. You know, the problem that I have been observing from this space that I am, and also being physically away from where things are happening, let's say, gave me the power to contextualize things, to put things into a certain framework. And I was just really tired of seeing again and again the same people saying the same thing, becoming near heroes, you know, just giving the same peace messages, so-called peace messages over the years, you know. It became so much that for me, they were no longer giving a peace message. They were just there to proclaim themselves, to you know, use this as a branding. And with all respect, most of the time they tend to be middle-aged and males. And I was like, okay, this has to stop. I would like to do something different. I would like to debunk these zero-sum discourses. And I'm not to be honest with you, it also never interested me how many people actually listen to me. I mean, I do check the numbers of my podcast, and of course, eventually you want to be listened, and I think I reached that. But for me, it was much more interesting to talk about something intellectual. So I was like thinking, okay, what can I do? How can I be productive? And then, because I'm also genuinely interested in arts and culture, I made some research and I came across those amazing people who are not in the center at all, but who are in the periphery, who do amazing peace-building projects, who bring different communities together, make use of different language, through arts and culture to create peace in Cyprus. So for instance, in the last couple of years, I interviewed a poet, Nafia Akdeniz, from Turkish part of Cyprus. She works on Varosha narratives. I had the privilege of interviewing Alexis Hercules, who is an author. He wrote short stories. He's right now publishing his book. Very interesting book about not only Cyprus of 1974, but of contemporary Cyprus, again, contextualizing peace into our contemporary world. So I think, to sum it up, I think it's difficult to say I am, really making a big change when it comes to peace. How do I construct messages of peace? By giving people in the periphery, by giving people who are not in the center a chance to speak, by giving them a chance to talk about their genuine projects. I think that is my role. In that sense, I consider myself more behind, more shadow-like. It's their work, it's their project, it's their ownership. My humble role in this is to give them a platform to speak, which I believe we desperately need.
That's amazing. Thank you, Meltem. Sophia, you mentioned before that the media, when you decided to put the message out there, did not show as much attention as you expected. Why do you think this was the case? And is this the same? Is this the case for both the Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot media? And why do you think? What does this tell us for the traditional media in Cyprus? Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can only speculate why that was the case, that they didn't pick it up. But what I do observe in traditional media in Cyprus is that everyone seems to be so focused on and repeatedly reporting about the problem and focusing on that there is no space for positive stories. There's no space for positive examples of collaboration between the communities. And in my opinion, this can be harmful. And I really want to echo what Angela Olgin said, because she said when a painful narrative is repeatedly taught, it becomes impossible for people to be open for change and to believe in a better future. And I also want to echo what Meltem said about this, even the peace narrative being consistently the same, and even in that aspect being not being told, but kind of almost being told how you're supposed to create a narrative of peace. And I want to congratulate her for doing it differently. I think her work is really inspiring as well. And I do want to mention on a positive note that we've seen that nowadays you don't need to rely on the traditional media to reach your audience. And we've managed to reach incredible numbers of people through different platforms and also through the support of the International Olympic Committee. I believe we've reached more than 2,500 people in Cyprus and worldwide directly through events and workshops and forums that we've been involved in. And some of our content on social media has received more than 100,000 views. So that's just proof that, you know, nowadays we have so many platforms to take advantage of.
Okay, really interesting. Thank you. Kostas, how did people perceive the documentary in Greece? What kind of comments have you received, either online or offline? Have you received any, let's say, hate comments at any point? And comparing to other media channels in Greece during July, August 2024, I mean, what were they producing during that time? Sorry for the 3-4 questions. Hope you remember.
Okay. There was an impressive response, which was reflected both in the clicks on the internet, but mainly in the discussion it caused. There was a lot of discussion about the approach and the fact that we presented some images and opinions that rarely heard in the mainstream media. So from the material that we collect during our job here in Cyprus, we created a bunch of video reels for the CNN social media. We should not underestimate the power of the social media as a tool for the mainstream media, not only for the mainstream media, but also for the mainstream media. And we create, as I said, video reels from our material, and several videos, different videos, with topics and interviews and footage that we did not include to the documentary, because the documentary is about 55 minutes. We have many hours of material and very interesting interviews. We didn't want to, we thought that this material was important and we didn't want to throw it away, but to publish it and make it easy to the people to listen and to watch more material. So I would like to present you some figures about the videos on the internet, especially in YouTube, because it's not our strong social media medium, but it's very, very important. The documentary so far has made about 41,000 clicks. The reels, about 65,000 clicks.
Yes.
And all the video, in the whole, more than 150,000 clicks. But what is more impressive is the Instagram, because in the Instagram, all the material that we upload from the documentary had more than 1.85 million clicks.
Wow.
Yes, it's a big number.
And compared to other documentaries, was it one of the
I
top ones?
I haven't seen the
Compared to other, okay.
the figures of other documentaries, but
Okay.
this number is impressive to me, and it is very important because since Instagram has mainly young people and people that we call it active citizens. So it's a very, very important, this number. Now, regarding the comments we received about the documentary, it was a variety of comments. Mainly, most people of the comments were political comments and about the Cyprus issue and personal assessments of the viewers. They decided not to criticize or to say something about the documentary, but to express their own opinion about the Cyprus issue. Of course, we have some some haters, yeah.
Yes.
Some of them said that our documentary were pro-Turkish. But from the majority were people who gave us positive feedback and qualified the documentary as unbiased and balanced. So, as I said before, in the same period we have another documentary which was made by a big website, but it focused most on the testimonies of people who lived during the events of 1974. It has a historical approach. There was another two documentaries in the television, one in the public television and another one in a private TV channel, also with historical approach. And after the release of our documentary, there was another big website that made the documentary following our narrative, our focus.
Okay, I'll try to make a short summary of what we said, and then please tell me any reactions you have, any final comments, and also how can someone find your work online. So my, let's say, personal takeaway from this conversation is that, first of all, I mean, we didn't discuss this, but we took it for granted. I think it's easier for nationalistic messages to go viral. I don't know why psychologically this is the case. Maybe, someone, if they see, their nationality to be promoted or let's say the enemy's nationality to be, downgraded, we feel, more proud of ourselves. It makes us feel better, so that we click like and we like what we see, and also because it's more, easy for us to process. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but maybe this is the case. So the first message is this: if you want to change the narrative and put a different message out there, that it's not only to fight the Turks or fight the Greeks or we hate them, but we can work with them, or there might be something different. It's more difficult, and you can either don't care about numbers, but if you do care, because you're either a professional journalist or you just want to be listened, as Meltem said, or you just, you want to have more impact, because if you do something, you usually want to make an impact, so you need people to follow you and see you to make an impact. If you want to do so, from what you said, I noted that you have to be more creative. You don't have to, it's not enough to put the message out there. You have to, create nice images, maybe wow moments, or like find ways such as shorts or reels or other ways that will help. And I think that way, and also if you're persistent and your work is of good quality, you have good chances to achieve this. So what do you think about my summary? I'll start with Sofia.
I think you put it together quite well. No, that was quite to the point and very well said. I hope that our discussion today has shed some light on the potential of media to challenge the conventional narrative and the potential it has to inspire collaboration across communities. But the reality is that we cannot always please everyone, and everyone will keep on having their own views, their own opinions. So, yeah, I think we're not even trying to do that. Yeah.
And also, how can someone, has your documentary been screened yet? And how can people, when will people be able to view it, to see it?
Thanks for that question. So it hasn't yet been screened in Cyprus, but we're extremely proud because the first screening took place during the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024 this summer, during an event that was supported by the IOC and brought together stakeholders across the Olympic movement. But I'm now really, really happy because we're now planning the first screening in Cyprus that will be hosted by the United Nations in Cyprus and also supported by the French Embassy. And this event will kick off a series of screenings on the island. So if people are interested to see it or also to collaborate with us, organizing screenings in Cyprus or abroad, we're happy to hear from them. They can reach out to us. They can find all the necessary information on the website, which is windsofchange-cyprus.com. And they can also find us on Instagram and socials. So yeah, we really look forward to bringing the documentary to the island, but also to the world.
Amazing. We will be there. Okay, Meltem, final reactions, final comments, and how can people find your podcasts?
Well, I think your summary is amazing, Nicholas. I don't have anything to add, and I think Sofia has made an amazing point. And I'm also very much inspired by her work and by Kostas's work. I also wanted to say this. How can people find my podcast? Well, it's on Spotify. If you search for it, it's Sesta, so SESTA, or just if you go to the website of Island Talks, you'll be able to reach my podcast. But it's overall available on all podcast platforms. So, for instance, if you're making use of Apple Podcasts, you can also find it. So yeah, it's out there. And if you have any comments about my podcast or if you would like to collaborate, please feel free to reach out because I'm always looking for inspiring people who have a story to tell.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Kostas.
Yes, I don't have to add much. So we as professionals, we have to keep doing what we know and what we believe that is the right to do with respect to the audience, respect the people who watch, listen and read our products. So as far as the documentary, it's very easy to find it. It's free on the internet. It's on CNN Greece, on YouTube. You can click Cyprus or Kypros, or you can scroll a bit. You can find it, and very soon we will have also English subtitles.
Excellent. Before I thank you, I just wanted to also share that I have been and I'm still trying to find ways to make the messages that I believe are important, to make them more interesting. And I should say that when we started Oxygen for Democracy in 2011, and we started it as a blog. So I'm that old. Back then we had blogs and not podcasts. So when we started it, I remember our first article when we shared it. It had like 3 likes, and it was from the 3 people that we created the blog. Thankfully now, like 12 years after, more people follow the work. But it's not only that doing the same thing. We try hard to think of ways to be more creative and to actually understand what people are interested in hearing. And we're still working on it because, I mean, if this would have been like a political party's event, there would have been like 200 people here, but unfortunately there are not that many. But yes, thank you so much for this very interesting discussion. Kostas Pliakos in Greece, Sofia Michalopoulos, Winds of Change, and Meltem Burak from with the Sesta podcast. Thank you all very much.
Thank you too.
Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, perfect. We also finished 8 minutes before time.